He walked out with my tears, he came back to my silence. I was 7 months pregnant when Ryan walked out. There was no warning. No fight. No final "I'm sorry." Just a slammed door, a vibrating phone with a one-line text. "I can't do this anymore." We had picked baby names a week ago. He had kissed my belly the night before. And yet, that morning, I stood in the kitchen holding a spoonful of oatmeal, watching his toothbrush missing from the sink, the closet half empty, and a silence that hummed like grief. I didn't cry at first. Shock is colder than tears. But by nightfall, I sat on the bathroom floor and wept until my ribs ached. Not just for me, but for the baby he'd already left behind. Raising Eli alone was never part of the plan. But I learned. I took jobs that let me work nights, waitressing, stocking shelves, tutoring online, just so I could be home during the day. My mother helped when she could. My pride bled dry, but I never begged him to return. Ryan never reached out. Not once. No birthday card. No hospital visit. Not even when Eli had a febrile seizure at 11 months. I stopped checking his social media when I saw pictures of him on a beach with some new woman, captioned, "Finally living my life." I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I turned off the phone and made Eli laugh with finger puppets instead. 8 years passed. Eli was tall for his age, sharp like his father but softer in the soul. He asked once, "Do I have a dad?" and I gave him the truth. "You have a mom who stayed." Then, one day, I received an envelope in the mail. It was an invitation. Not from Ryan, no, he didn't even sign it, but from his company. He was being honored at some corporate gala, a fundraiser I used to volunteer at when we were younger. Attached was a small card that read, "It would mean something if you came." I almost tore it in half. But then I saw Eli sleeping with the stuffed bunny Ryan had bought at our first ultrasound. I didn't RSVP. I just showed up. The ballroom glowed in golds and silvers. Everyone wore their best smiles. Champagne danced in glasses. Ryan stood at the center, older, bulkier, but still him. He saw me across the room and froze. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I stood there, calm and unreadable, holding the hand of a boy who looked just like him. "Eli." Ryan approached slowly, eyes flickering with some nervous tremble. "Is that?" "Yes," I said. "His name is Eli." He knelt awkwardly, trying to speak to the boy he never met. "Hi. I'm your..." Eli turned away, uninterested. He pulled a comic book from his backpack and sat in a nearby chair, unfazed. I looked Ryan in the eyes. "I didn't come for you," I said. "I came to show him the man he didn't need." Ryan asked to talk after the event. Said he was sorry and a different man now. I nodded but never replied. He asked to take us for dinner. I declined. He asked if he could send gifts. I told him, Eli doesn't accept strangers. He called. I didn't answer. He emailed. I never replied. Because silence wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. It was a wall he built when he left, and I merely honored it. I wasn't bitter. I was whole. I had cried oceans. Now, I lived in calm. I used to think pregnancy was the hardest part. It wasn't. It was the after. The sleepless nights. The colic. The first fever that came like a freight train, and the ambulance ride where I held Eli so tight I could feel my bones shake. Alone. People whispered, of course. "Poor thing," they'd say behind my back at the grocery store. "The father. Who knows," they'd murmur at daycare pickup. I was the girl he left pregnant, the one who wore tired eyes and second-hand clothes. But what they didn't know was that I kept going. That I rocked my baby to sleep while filling out scholarship applications. That I stitched together scraps of dignity into armor. And one day, at the pharmacy, I saw Ryan's brother, Jason. He hesitated, almost turned away. But I stopped him. "He knows?" I asked. Jason looked like he'd swallowed glass. He knew, he admitted. He just didn't want to be a father. I nodded. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Because I already knew. "Why don't I have a dad?" Eli asked one night, holding a paper crown he made in class. It was Father's Day. He wasn't angry. Just curious. I wanted to lie, to soften the edges. But Eli was old enough now. Old enough to deserve honesty without bitterness. You do have a dad, I said. But he left before you were born. Why? Because some people leave when things get hard. But I stayed. And I'll always stay. He stared at the crown for a long moment, then quietly ripped it in half. Not out of rage, but as if erasing something he never truly had. That night, he crawled into my bed and wrapped his arms around me. I don't need him, he whispered. And I didn't say it, but I felt the same. After the gala, I thought Ryan would disappear again, fade back into the shadows of his own choices. But he didn't. 2 weeks later, a bouquet of sunflowers appeared on our porch. Eli's favorite, though there was no way Ryan could have known that. Alongside it sat a box wrapped in shiny blue paper. Inside, a brand new baseball glove, a remote-controlled car, and a card written in shaky handwriting. I want to make things right. Ryan. I stood there holding the note in one hand, the unopened gift box in the other, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or toss it all in the trash. Because what Ryan didn't understand, what people like him never understand, is that right doesn't bloom after abandonment. You don't get to vanish for nearly a decade and then try to replant yourself in someone's life like nothing happened. You don't get to rewrite history with a birthday present. Over the next month, the attempts escalated. Emails trickled into my inbox, long-winded paragraphs about how much he'd changed, how he never stopped thinking about us, how he had regrets and wanted to be a father now. He called once. I didn't answer. Then again. And again. And finally, one Saturday morning, as Eli's soccer game kicked off beneath the wide stretch of autumn sky, I spotted him, Ryan, standing near the far end of the field, sunglasses on, hands shoved in his coat pockets. Watching. He hadn't aged gracefully. His once sharp jawline was softer now, his posture more uncertain, like he carried the weight of all the words he'd never said. I tightened my grip on my coffee cup and took a long breath. Eli noticed him, too. He squinted, then nudged my side. Is that him? I looked at my son, so tall now, so self-possessed, and nodded. Yes, I said. Eli tilted his head, studying the man from across the field, his brows furrowed like he was waiting to feel something, anything, but nothing came. After a few seconds, he said quietly, "He looks smaller than I imagined." And in that moment, I realized the truth. Ryan had become a shadow to Eli. A concept. Not a loss. Not a hole in the heart, just a stranger whose absence had taught us both how to be strong. That night, after Eli had fallen asleep with a book half open across his chest, I sat on the edge of my bed, opened my laptop, and clicked on the latest email Ryan had sent. This one ended with a line that nearly made me laugh. Just give me a chance to fix this. But we were not broken furniture. We were not a project. So I typed just one line in reply, no anger, no flourish, just truth. Please stop. We're not a project you get to fix. Then I clicked send. And it felt like closing a door I'd been holding open for far too long. It happened late one night, after Eli had gone to sleep and the world outside had fallen into that soft, weightless quiet. You'd think the years would have dulled the sting, but some memories don't fade, they just get quieter, until they whisper at your weakest hour. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I used to balance bills, spoon baby food into Eli's mouth, and cry silently into mugs of lukewarm tea. And I started to write. It began with the first kick I felt inside my belly, the one that came just one day after Ryan had walked out. I had been lying on the couch, curled up and hollowed out, trying to believe it had all been a bad dream. And then, that sudden, fluttering jolt beneath my ribs. It felt like life itself was reminding me, you are not alone. I wrote about those early days, when I hadn't yet figured out how to mix formula with one hand or sleep in 30-minute increments. About holding Eli through colic, through midnight fevers and scraped knees. About making up bedtime stories because I couldn't afford new books. I told Ryan that I used to dream he'd show up at the hospital the night Eli had a febrile seizure. I had sat there, holding our toddler's tiny, burning body, praying for any form of miracle, and still, I kept glancing at the door like he might walk through it. But he never did. I wrote that Eli has his hazel eyes, the same dimpled chin, the the same stubborn streak. But none of his absence. None of his selfishness. I didn't write out of anger. There was no venom in the ink, only truth. I told him I didn't hate him. But I also didn't need him. That was the part people never understood. You can grieve someone and still move forward. You can acknowledge the damage without handing them the power to cause more. I ended the letter with one sentence I knew would never reach him. Love is not proven in words, it's proven in presence. Then, with shaking hands, I folded the pages neatly, tucked them into an unaddressed envelope, and walked to the fireplace. I didn't cry as I lit the match. I just watched the flames eat the paper, line by line, memory by memory, until nothing but ashes remained. Some letters are meant to be written for closure, not for postage. The gymnasium was packed with families, proud parents with balloons, camera phones in hand, cheering loudly with every name called. And there I was, front row. I had always been front row. I'd been there when Eli played the squirrel in his kindergarten play, when he won the science fair with a homemade volcano, when he ran his first mile without stopping in middle school. I had clapped through every solo, every spelling bee, every parent-teacher conference. I had been there. Always. Now, he stood on the stage, taller than me, wearing a navy blue cap and gown that didn't quite hide the strength in his shoulders or the kindness in his eyes. Valedictorian. A scholarship. A future. He looked so much like his father, and yet, he wasn't. He was better. I was so wrapped in the moment, so swollen with pride, that I almost didn't notice the figure lingering near the exit. Ryan. He stood just outside the gate, behind the folding chairs, far enough away to not be noticed unless you were looking for him. Suit. Tie. Sunglasses, even though we were indoors. He looked older, heavier with time. His shoulders stooped in that way men carry years of regret. Eli spotted him too. He leaned toward me, quiet. Is that him? I nodded. Yes. He turned his head. Studied the man in the shadows. Then he said, simply, he looks smaller than I imagined. We didn't speak of it again. When the ceremony ended and the music swelled and families poured into hugs and photos, we walked straight past Ryan. He didn't call out. Didn't wave. Just watched. And as we reached the car, Eli looked at me, a rolled diploma in one hand, tassel in the other. Thanks for being my mom, he said, and my everything. My throat tightened, but I didn't let a tear fall. I smiled. I kissed his forehead. And then we drove away, calm, whole, and without a single glance back. This time, I didn't walk away broken. This time, I walked away without a tear.